This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. We also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 4th of August 2021 and I am Miss Gay.
And I am JM. In case you missed the headlines this morning, here they are. In the Daily Nation, revealed DP Ruto's mission in Uganda. In the Standard, the Ruto-MUSEVENI link. And in the Star, Ruto foreign trips must be approved, says State.
Whoa.
All about Ruto's failed excursion into Uganda. Do you want to tell us more about that too?
Yes, Ruto's thing went bananas. Yesterday, we hypothesized that Uhuru may have saved Ruto from the ICC arrest by blocking his travel to Uganda. And we will stick by that. Today, I'd like to speculate a little bit more into what Ruto's business was in Uganda. After all, it is not illegal to speculate. We have a hypothesis. Ruto is cash-strapped. Man is broke. And that's okay. We all run out of money once in a while. But for a whole deputy president to wait in a small room in an airport for clearance, those are signs of desperation. If you had to wait for 5 hours for anything, it would have to be a lifeline or something life-changing or career-changing. Question is, what was Ruto really dying to get in Uganda that he had to wait for 5 hours? Answer is simple. It had to be cash. Why then would he travel to Uganda more than 3 times in less than 6 months? And we say this because, according to the Standard newspaper, Muammar Gaddafi financed 2 elections in Kenya, the 2002 and 2007 elections. Both the opposition and government were financed by him. And the cash wasn't wired electronically. Once the election, both parties used to send high-power delegations to receive cash from Gaddafi. And that was in Libya. Question is, if ODM and PNU got cash from Gaddafi, why wouldn't Ruto get cash from Sebo himself? But more importantly, if Ruto has sequenced his order of battle, he may have realized that he'll expend more money than he earlier expected. He knew he would have 2022 to think about, maybe a referendum to think about, and now he has the ICC to think about. He basically needs a bigger financial war chest than he was prepared for. Plus, if he has been pushed out of government, we can infer that his collection channels have been tightened. And therefore, the rent he used to pay Kikuyus has cushioned.
That's right.
In short, Ruto hasn't realized he's fighting a war of attrition. He's being worn down slowly by slowly. Question is, can he sustain a war with his boss?
Brilliant hypothesis there. He's between a rock and a hard place.
Absolutely.
And a fix completely.
Yep.
Now, I want to digress a little bit and talk about NASA. Yesterday, NASA died officially. We called it, like 5-6 years ago. The coalition was dissolved when the 3 parties, Mudavidi's ANC, Ford Kenya's Moses Wetangula, and the WDM, Wiper movement of Kalonzo Musyoka left. So how should we interpret this? Simple. It's a revolt against the dominance of Raila Odinga. But it is also a chess move orchestrated by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The idea being to polarize the different political groupings and to divide them, cast them asunder. Because when they break up, as they have now, they will be better able to invigorate and consolidate their ethnic bases before then combining them and combining forces in the 2022 election. In other words, this strategy is the one that will revive ethnicity big time. And that works, as we have said in the past, as an antidote to the hustler versus dynasties rhetoric. But what does that mean for Raila, this walk away? Will One Kenya Alliance's exit from NASA in any way affect his prominence as the #1 candidate to beat in 2022? In my view, no. So what should he do? First of all, Mudavadi and Kalonzo, together they marshal about 2.5 million votes. That is around 2 million for the Kambas and about 500,000 for Mudavadi, going by the 2013 election results in which he stood for president. So that's quite a sum, and it's worth pursuing because it can swing the election this way or that way. But what are the One Kenya Alliance really after? In my view, it's not so much that they want to divorce Raila. They want to pandisha bay, up their value so that they can increase their bargaining power when they're crafting a coalition agreement with ODM in the run-up to 2022. And you know what? It's a smart thing on their part because they too, to an extent, will then become kingmakers in the run-up to 2022. Lastly, Raila, what he would do well is to put the One Kenya Alliance members in a double bind. Damned if they run alone without him, and damned if they run with him. And why do I say so? Because in the end, when political leaders and voters are in a double bind, as they will be on the 9th of August 2021, the most logical thing for them will be to choose the lesser evil, right? And who is the lesser evil between Raila and Ruto? No, it's very simple. It's a no-brainer, that question.
It is a no-brainer.
No-brainer.
No-brainer completely. I'll take us back a little bit and to the old news. So today's headlines are focused on old news. William Ruto's aborted trip to Uganda. I already gave my comments on this matter, and if you want to hear them, you can watch yesterday's episode of Winning Headlines. But the lack of news and the fixation with William Ruto did inspire me with a thought. And I'd like to make an attempt to explain the preoccupation of the public and the Fourth Estate with the Deputy President. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think that as a nation, we are experiencing cognitive dissonance as we watch and attempt to interpret the Deputy President. Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort we feel when we hold conflicting beliefs or where there is an inconsistency between our values or beliefs and our actions.
Yes.
Because we as human beings are bad at dealing with inconsistencies, our instinct is to resolve them by any means necessary. And what, you may ask, is the inconsistency with William Ruto? Let me try. He is the Deputy President, second in command to the President. And as any good employee knows, to do well at your job, you must have a good working relationship with your boss.
Yes.
But the DP has formed a competing party. He's peddling alternative candidates. He's flaunting agreed policy. Basically, he's behaving in a manner that calls for summary dismissal.
Yes.
And basic common sense tells us that this behavior is inconsistent with the norm and not all is proper.
That's right.
So the inconsistent behavior we're witnessing with the DP is causing us as Kenyans discomfort. And to relieve the tension, we are rejecting the obvious things that he's doing that are not right. We're explaining away his behavior, using the media, and we're avoiding any new information of obvious insubordination. How do we fix this problem? I must confess, I don't know. But a good place to start may be in acknowledging that there is a problem to begin with. Someone once said that we have to acknowledge a problem exists before you can actually go about finding a solution.
Yes. Absolutely. So we have a three-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines: topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and thoughtful or just plain lazy. What do we think of these headlines? Revealed DP Ruto's mission in Uganda. The Ruto MUSEVENI link or Ruto foreign trips must be approved, says state.
I love the approved one, which is true. It must be approved. You cannot just move out of the country like this is a kiosk.
Yes.
But I also like what the plan was. The one that was revealed. I think that was the Daily Nation.
Daily Nation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Daily Nation and Standard.
I think we give it to the Daily Nation. Yeah. So we'll toss the Star and the Standard, but they were, good nonetheless. But the Daily Nation takes it. And now, on to our final thought. But before we get there, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So what is our final thought?
And now, our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled Telling Lies: Clues to Deceit in Marketplace Politics and Marriage by Paul Ekman.
In everyday life, we try to distinguish truth from falsehood using our eyes and our ears. But our eyes and our ears can lead us astray. As human beings, we are generally very poor lie detectors. But how can you tell if someone is lying? According to the author, you can do so using micro-expressions and micro-gestures. These are small facial expressions or body movements that happen involuntarily for a fraction of a second as an emotion is triggered. These micro-expressions and micro-gestures act as an indicator that what you said was not really what you meant. The author of today's book, Paul Ekman, was the first researcher to examine how, on a large scale, observable changes in the face and body reflect truth-telling or lying. In the 1960s, he formulated a theory of universal facial expressions for the basic emotions: anger, disgust, enjoyment, fear, sadness, and surprise. He theorized that these emotional reactions were basic emotions because they triggered the same muscular responses on the facial muscles of all people, regardless of culture or country of origin. And once these basic emotions were triggered, the physical response was nearly impossible to conceal. Even when a person attempted to conceal their reaction, it leaked through using a micro-expression or a micro-gesture. Ekman claims that in laboratory experiments, truth and lies can be told apart by facial expressions alone with an accuracy of more than 80%. And that figure reaches 90% when other factors such as body movement, voice, and language were included in the analysis. Could you learn Dr. Ekman's methodology and use it to tell whether your partner or your children were lying with accuracy? Maybe. But in conclusion, I found it interesting that Sigmund Freud subscribed to Dr. Ekman's microexpressions theory. Freud wrote, he that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him from every pore.
Interesting.
It's beautiful. I love the chapter on detecting deceit. I love what he says, that liars tend to be most careful about their choice of words. You know why? Because everyone learns in the process of growing up that most people listen closely to what he said. Words receive such great attention because they are obviously the richest, most differentiated way to communicate. Many more messages can be transmitted far more quickly by words than by face, voice, or body. Liars censor what they say carefully, concealing messages they do not want to deliver, not only because they have learned that everyone pays attention to this source, but also because they know that they will be held more accountable for their words than for the sound of their voice, facial expressions, or most body movements. But even a careful liar may be betrayed by what Sigmund Freud first identified as a slip of the tongue. In the psychopath log, or rather psychopathology of everyday life, Freud showed how the faulty actions of everyday life, such as slips of the tongue, the forgetting of familiar names, and mistakes in reading and writing, were not accidents, but meaningful events, revealing internal psychological conflicts. Slips express, he said, something one did not wish to say. It becomes a mode of self-betrayal. And you don't have to look far for examples. Just watch Chief Hustler. There's plenty of subject matter right there.
Now, I would like to talk about lies in the context of public life and in the context of politics at a larger scale. And in particular, President Jimmy Carter and why he was justified in lying, as the author tells us. So Jimmy Carter defeated Gerald Ford in the 1976 presidential election to become president, when Nixon had resigned. And during the election campaign, Carter promised to restore morality to the White House after the trying and scandalous Watergate years. But 3 years later, though, he lied many times to conceal his plans to rescue American hostages from Iran. So during the early years of Carter's presidency, the Shah of Iran was overthrown by a fundamentalist Islamic revolution. The Shah had always received American support. So when he went into exile, Carter allowed him to come to the United States for medical treatment. Infuriated by this, Iranian militants seized the US embassy in Tehran, taking 60 American hostages. Soon after the hostages were seized, Carter secretly ordered the military to begin training for a rescue operation. And on the 8th of January 1980, President Carter, in front of a press conference, lied, saying that a military rescue would almost certainly end in failure and almost certainly end in the death of the hostages. As he was saying this, the Delta military force was rehearsing the rescue operation hidden in the southwestern desert of the United States. So Carter lied to the American people, but he did that because he knew the Iranians were listening to what he had to say. And he wanted to lull the Iranian militants guarding these hostages into a false sense of security. So the primary target of Carter's lies was the Iranians who had violated international law by taking these hostages, embassy staff. So there was no way to deceive them without deceiving the American people and American Congress. The end justifies the means, it is said. Now, in the end, sadly, the rescue mission collapsed. It was a miserable, epic failure. But the author notes that Carter was condemned because, the rescue mission failed, not because he had broken his promise not to lie to the American people, as his predecessor Nixon had done.
I think it's interesting to note, and I think I'll bring that here. The author makes a distinction between two types of lies. The first lie is the lie of concealment, which is what was done here. I didn't say the full truth. I told you some part of it. And the other is a lie of falsification. That's a black lie. So I make up something completely and I tell you. And I think that most people are okay with white lies or lies of concealment. Like if I don't tell you it's your surprise birthday party and I lie to you.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Now, we had a winning headline today from the Daily Nation. And I'd like to leave you with a quote by Francois the Sixth, the Duc de la Rochefort, a 15th century French moralist and writer of maxims. And there's a quote on intelligence, and he said, "The height of cleverness is to conceal one's cleverness."
Fantastic.
Have a good evening.